Episode 36. So you want to be a photographer?
Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So, switch on your brain and enjoy the show.
Welcome back, podcasters, to the Visionary Variety Podcast. We are honored that you're listening to us once again. We hope you've had a great week and enjoyed our last episode. I was unfortunately missing, but I'm back. And the rumors are true. We had a baby, and it's super cute. It's way cuter than you. But I'm back, and I have had a little bit of sleep since last week. This episode's going to be super fun. We will be talking about how to get started in a general sense as a photographer and with the goal of making money as a photographer. So we hope you enjoy this episode. And if you have any further questions that come off of this episode, we would love for you to email them in. I'll do my best to answer them. If you want to be a photographer and if this episode is just for you, I do encourage you to sit down, focus, and take some good notes because there is a lot of great information in this episode. And at the end of the episode, I'm going to play some clips that I got from some of my friends locally that are amazing photographers that do just different stuff, have different styles, have different businesses. But I asked them all, hey, what would you guys like to share with my audience? What are some tips that you have for new photographers? Send me your audio clips and I will put them on the podcast. So near the end of the show, you will hear from all of them. And again, lots of great information there. Hope you take some notes. Well, in case you're new to the show, I'm Daniel Grove. I'm a local photographer in San Antonio, Texas. We've also got with us our other host of the show, Nate Gunn.
Hey.
And Nate, real quick, why don't you tell the audience what you do? Why are you here?
Why am I here? I'm just joking.
Why are we all here?
Well, I am a full-time videographer that dabbles in photo. So I'm kind of the opposite of Daniel. He's a full-time photographer that dabbles in video. So
We're like yin and yang.
Yeah.
We're like peanut butter and jelly.
Well, I mean, I don't know now because now you're offering video packages. So now I have to start offering photo packages. So you're making me a better man, and I don't want to be.
Wow, just got real emotional.
Yeah.
All right, well, before we get into the meat of the episode, Nate, anything interesting going on online that you've read or watched anything new lately? What's new?
Jon Favreau is going to go ahead and introduce the Mandalorian TV show.
Wow.
But we both know it's not going to be just like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. It's going to be Disney's own provided service, I'm sure.
I am foretelling the future that anything Star Wars related is eventually going to disappear from everywhere, but only going to be available on Disney's streaming service in like 2-3 years.
Because like the Clone Wars on Netflix, I think, and the other one is too. Yeah. I don't remember the name, but like the entire
Rebels. Everything
is there. And it's like, well, you better watch now because honestly, Netflix has been taking some of these bigger shows away, not even Disney related, and so they're kind of cleaning out stuff. So if you haven't already, you might want to go start those episodes so you can understand, or pay your crap load of money, in the store,
buy
or
them.
Yeah, make a subscription to Disney's digital service. So,
Well, speaking of streaming and online shows, I have started watching 3 new shows. There is too many good shows online right now. Like I'm complaining about them being too many good shows, which is weird.
Well,
it's hard for me to watch them all. My wife and I just started watching a few nights ago. We watched Manifest, which is a cool drama. I don't want to say sci-fi, but it's a mystery show. Basically, an airplane worth of passengers disappears, and 5 years later, it lands.
Whoa.
And no one on the plane knows what happened. And they're like, hey, 5 years didn't pass. We just were flying and we landed. There was some turbulence in the middle, and here we are.
That's crazy.
But the rest of the world outside the plane has gone through 5 years of actual history, and everyone is, on the outside is older. The family members, some of them have died, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, pretty cool mystery setup. I don't know what's happening, but we also started watching The Gifted, which is a Marvel Universe / X-Men Universe show about some, about mutants and the government trying to take them down. The Sentinel Services, which is bad guys.
Yeah.
Really cool. They're on the run, stuff like that. Superpowers. Got some really creative powers I'm really liking. Also started watching Maniac, which we talked about on this show a while back, and it is delivering. It's really well made. It's different. It's creative. Great acting. Great writing. So it's a really good show so far. I'm hoping that I'm hoping to watch the rest of it soon and see what's going on because I need answers.
Yeah, honestly, they have some genuine big names in there, so it makes it even more exciting to watch.
You don't hear me ranting and raving about A-list actors. Like I could care less normally, but it is kind of fun to watch these guys because I do like these actors. Another showy related news item that I read recently is the Narnia universe is coming to Netflix. There's going to be an episodic Narnia-based TV show. which is cool. I love Narnia.
Yeah.
Those are some of the first books I ever completed. As a teenager, I didn't read a lot of books as I was a kid. And I have a big connection to those books. I actually really do enjoy the old movies. It's kind of weird that they're remaking them because I'm like, don't do that. The movies were great. But, that was like in 2005-ish. So maybe they're due for an upgrade. I don't know.
I wonder what their take's going to be on, like, is it going to be like Game of Thrones? Is it going to be like the quality? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, because if it's going to be a TV show, we've already have similar shows out there that could, I guess you could relate, like, well, it looked like that. I mean, not the storyline, but like the quality.
Yeah. I was going to say, if it's anything like Game of Thrones, there's going to be a lot of upset people. Because, let's just say Narnia and Game of Thrones are pretty much polar opposites.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Except for the fantasy element. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing something that, in my mind, is such a movie-based series turning into an episodic TV show and series-based or season-based media. It's just going to be an interesting adaptation.
How many books were there for Narnia?
7 books.
Oh, there you go. 7 seasons.
Yeah, it could be that. That would be pretty cool. See 1 book per season.
Yeah.
I think they can definitely make that happen and have a lot more room to tell, 45 minutes to an hour worth of story for each chunk. It'd be pretty cool for each episode. Last thing that's going on with me is I did my traveling dress photo shoot last night. So what this is a project put on by my photographer friend, Brandy Morgan, who you will hear a clip from at the end of this episode. And basically what she did was she bought a really pretty dress and she is giving it to a different photographer every week. And that photographer's responsibility is to find a model and the location and photograph this dress in any way or style they want. And in the end, we're going to have, the same dress, but on different types of models, different types of photographers. It's going to be really interesting seeing everyone's different style, but with one unifying element, which is this beautiful dress. So I did my first one last night, and it was a lot of fun. And I'll just say there was a sword involved, so it's epic. Be looking on my Instagram and Facebook page for those pictures very soon because I can't wait to post them. They're so good. All right. Well, I think that's it for our chit chat. Let's get on with the bulk of this episode about being a photographer. Let me just give this little disclaimer. I do not know everything. Some of you may think I do. I definitely don't. I know I don't know everything.
I feel like you're lying.
So, do you know something I don't? This is not like me saying, here's my quick steps to easy success, and you're going to be an amazing photographer if you follow my advice because I know everything and I've done everything right, and any other method is wrong. That is not at all my attitude about this. This is not my viewpoint of me trying to help someone with their photography. That's not how this works. I have just learned a lot. I consider a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things the hard way. It's taken me lots and lots of years, about 14 years so far. I've been learning this whole thing, and I'm never going to stop learning. But I did want to share the little nuggets that I have learned that I wish I knew when I started. So if you are a new photographer, this is going to be gold for you. A lot of these things are going to be very helpful if you can get them, if you can remember them, wrap your head around them, and actually, most importantly, apply them. Don't just learn a bunch of stuff and walk away feeling good. You got to learn stuff and use it, or you just wasted a bunch of your time.
Take notes.
Yeah, take notes. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Nate. So sit down, get some notebook paper. Don't have distractions on. Don't use your phone for social media right now. Just write down some stuff that comes to your mind. Maybe some of the stuff we say will ring with you. Maybe you have questions. Write down those questions and you can send it to us, and we'll do our best to answer those at a later time. But this is a bulky episode of education and inspiration. So I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know everything, and I'm probably going to miss some stuff. If some of you pros out there are like, I can't believe you didn't mention this to those newbies. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know everything. I don't have everything figured out. I'm figuring this all out myself. So anyway, let's move on. All right. So if you want to start as a photographer, my first basic overarching advice is to establish some goals for yourself. It's really easy to just run out into the dark and chasing all these things, trying to learn this, trying to buy new gear. You don't know how to make money. You don't know how much to charge, but you don't care. You're just going to try something. Make some goals, set down some goals and write them out somewhere where you won't lose them. And, reach for those. Set up a goal for the end of this year, and then a goal for maybe 5 years, and then maybe even a 10-year goal. Like, do you want to be making $60,000 a year?
Yes.
Yes, please. Maybe by the end of this year, you just want to be making $100 per photo shoot. Maybe you're not even there. Maybe you don't even have a nice camera, but you want to get to the point with enough money to where you can buy a good camera. There's all different ranges, and don't feel bad about setting small goals, because those are great. Everyone has to set small goals, but also don't not set big goals, because those are what's really going to challenge you and drag you along sometimes. Sometimes you got to set big goals that'll drag you to them because it's a lot of work. This is not easy. Photography is such a hard career. In some ways, it is a very difficult career, and it's not for the faint of heart. All right, so establish your goals. For example, do you want to be a part-time photographer? Do you want to be a full-time photographer? Do you want to make really, really big numbers, like $100,000, $20,000 a year? That's going to take a lot of work and creativity and help from other people. You cannot do all this alone. And don't ever think that you can just set out and reinvent the wheel and do everything on your own. You're going to need help and advice from people. Especially as a beginning photographer, you're going to want to reach out to experienced photographers and get their thoughts on things and learn from them. More on that later. Next thing you want to set goals for is, how many photo shoots are you willing to do per month? Do you just want to do one big photo shoot and get paid for that? Or do you want to do like 3 fun photo shoots a week? It really does affect how you set up your business and how you approach marketing and your pricing strategy as well.
Yeah, it's especially important to make sure you have time, at least 5 to 10 hours per photo shoot. I mean, that's not how long the photo shoot may take, but you got to consider all the editing you have to do when you get back. And that's a lot of time. And, honestly, I've worked full-time jobs and done my craft, and it can be like never ending. Like you wake up at 6 and you stop at midnight and you get a few hours of sleep. So that's one thing to consider, is like, do you have the time? And if you do or don't, how much effort are you going to put in? Because as much as you put in is about as much as you get out. So just make sure you time management. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is time management. And a lot of people don't like even hearing that word, but to be able to make it in a lot of this kind of stuff is planning out your day, planning out your schedule, your shoots, and your editing process to be able to help you succeed. Because honestly, when you can push through and you get better, a year later, you can look back and be like, oh man, I can edit a whole session in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And you get better and better.
Like you were saying, this craft does take time. And if you already have a full-time job supporting yourself or your family, but you're trying to get into photography, you got to take kind of baby steps. It's usually the best way to do it. And you are going to need to have some free time for editing. Once you get to that point, you may not even be to the point where you even know how to edit. You don't even have the software to edit yet. That's okay. Then you are going to still need free time for learning, for watching YouTube videos, for browsing and scrolling through endless Facebook groups and questions and posts and comments, because that is where a lot of learning happens. We'll get to that later. There's so many bunny trails.
I guess the best advice I can give anybody listening, and people ask me like, how'd you do this? I'm like, honestly, I literally made YouTube a university and just learned off of other people and piggybacked until I understood it enough to be like, oh, I know how to do that. Fake it until you make it is what I did a lot. So yeah,
there's a time and place to spend money on your education, and that is very valuable. Assuming you're going to a good, reputable place that has good reviews and is going to teach you what you need to know, you can learn a lot really quickly. If you pay good money for a college course or an online course, or you go to conferences and things like that, you're going to learn stuff. You're going to pay money for it. And it's kind of like you're paying for convenience. You want to learn it really quick in one weekend, or you want to learn the stuff the hard way over the course of a year. That's one way to look at it. And I think Taylor, later in our audio clips, she's going to talk about that it is important to invest in your education, which it is. And I'm not against photography school. It's just me personally, I didn't do it. I found workarounds, which did take more time. All right. Next point is, you need to realize that if money is your goal with your photography, that you will have to be a business. And that kind of terrifies a lot of artists. Wouldn't you think, Nate?
For sure. Dude, I mean, honestly, the idea of having to go make it legit, I mean, the way I did it may not be the way everybody else does it, but I went downtown and I was very much intimidated, because I was walking into like it felt like a courthouse, but I was like, if you're not into all that kind of stuff, it is intimidating. So I'm honestly, I took friends and family. I was like, you guys gotta come with me. Pretty much, you're gonna have to hold me and talk for me, and I just smile and wave. So
your dad's been in the business world for years, so that's not a bad idea. Is to have someone that knows what's happening come with you and help you with those things.
Make sure you're signing for a business and not your life away.
Oh, sorry, you signed the wrong paperwork. We own your soul. So being a business is not an artistic venture. It is not a creative well, there is creativity involved in business, but it is not inherently a creative thing. And so when artists who are just so, we call it jokingly, we say artsy fartsy, these artsy fartsy people who love to make great photos, they can, edit for days, or they can talk with people all day long and make creative concepts and make stuff happen. They may be really great at photography, but they may be awful at business. And that, unfortunately, is the truth for a lot of people. But it's not a situation where you're stuck. Like this is your destiny to suck at business, but be good at art. So if you are great at the artistic part of photography, which is necessary, but you're really bad at the business, you can learn the business side. You can take classes, you can be mentored, you can learn and do research and kind of make up for that lack of business knowledge and business etiquette. If you put in the effort, and you eventually are going to have to do that. So my point here is you can't just be an artist. You also have to be a business person. You're going to have to get into sales. You're going to have to get into marketing. You're going to have to get into some amount of web design and or web presence and social media. If that stuff scares you and you don't feel like you want to overcome those things, and photography probably isn't for you, or at least making money off of photography as a professional photographer may not be for you, because it's not just taking photos. It ticks me off, but also makes me laugh when someone thinks that photography is just taking nice pictures and editing and posting stuff. I'm like, no. There's so much more. So being a business means quite a few things. First of all, it means professional operation and conduct. You have to be careful with what you say when you are considered a professional. If you want people to take you seriously as a photographer, you gotta be nice, even when people are jerks. You need to conduct yourself in a professional way. For myself, I have a decent amount of people that follow me. And, I just can't go posting any old thing that I think of or anything that I find funny. It may have curse words, which may offend, some portion of my audience. I stay away from political stuff because I don't want to offend or really bother other people. In the end, I could say, well, it's free speech. I'll do what I want. It's social media. I'm still a good photographer, but there's people watching. As a professional, I need to be careful what my online presence looks like to the massive amount of clueless viewers that may come across my page. So that's just one aspect of being a professional photographer. Other things to consider as you progress towards the state of being an active business is you need to have safety measures in place. And what I mean by that is you need to have backups of your pictures. If you do a photo shoot and you lose that card and there's no way to get it back, you're in some big trouble, especially if it's a wedding. That's a nightmare right there.
I do a ton of video, like you said, weddings and other things, and backups to your backups to your backups are a huge guaranteed. I mean, honestly, all three backups could crash, but you have three chances.
It's way less probability than there is of you just having your one hard drive crash and losing everything. That's a high probability. Whereas having multiple backup drives crash is like less than 1%. So
honestly, outside the scary part, it's real and it needs to be taken care of like seriously.
Early on. Yeah. I encourage, even not talking about backups at all, but I encourage new photographers to get an external hard drive just to save your earliest work. Because I have pretty much every single image I took, even back in high school. And you might call me a digital hoarder, and I might agree with you, but you know what? But by golly, I have every image I've ever taken, and that is a really cool thing because I have sometimes on a rainy day gone back and looked at my first photos, and that's pretty cool. Even though you think your pictures you take right now are the best you'll ever take, you're wrong. Don't think that. But it will be awesome to be able to look back to those in future years. So save all your photos, but also have a backup drive. I mean, they're pretty much the same thing we're talking about now. Putting your files on an additional hard drive, not just on your computer or laptop hard drive, but having them on an external USB hard drive is crucial to having a level of safety, a level of professionalism. Your entire computer could get stolen. And then what happens to your files? Well, you've got them on a hard drive or 2 or 3 hard drives, which is ideal. And you are good to go. Nate was using the word scary, and it is scary when you don't have backups. When your files are in one place, or as they say, when all your eggs are in one basket, that is risky. That is a business risk that when money is on the line, you don't want to have that risk as an option for you, because it's not fun. So get two hard drives you can get over $50 each, maybe a 1 or 2 terabyte drive. And that's a little bit of money to spend for such a great benefit for your business. So that's a safety measure. Another thing is having backup equipment. The biggest thing is to have a backup camera. You know, your main camera could fall into a lake. You trip and boom, splish splash. Oh no, I have no more camera to finish this wedding with. That's not a good situation to be in. And it's happened to plenty of photographers. So as soon as you can justify it, and this should be easily justifiable because of what this is you need to get a backup camera. You could buy a cheaper camera. If you have a decent camera, get a cheaper one afterwards. Maybe just a Rebel. Maybe third or fourth or fifth generation Rebel, just so you have something that you can put your lens on and take pictures with. And let's be honest, the cameras all work the same. So yeah, that's a subject for a different episode though. So having a backup camera is really beneficial once you get to that point of having a little bit of freed up money from your business you can spend. Further things to consider when you're becoming a business entity is income tax, sales tax, getting a DBA, which means doing business as, or an LLC. And both of those are legal terms that have to do with who you are as a business, or rather who the business is, and those can protect you in the case of lawsuit. And they also have to do with taxes. So don't neglect these things. Start reading up on them now so you have a good head start. And as the year progresses, you continue to learn about them and correct any assumptions you have and learn from others of what these things really mean for a photographer. And you'll be ready. When you're ready to make money, you'll be ready to have the business side behind you too and be safe and protected. Other things are insurance to protect your gear and also potential clients. If an accident happens, they want to sue you. And contracts. This is the last thing that I'll have in this little business section is contracts are your friend. Contracts are good.
Very much, very much.
A contract will spell out everything that the client is paying for, everything that you're delivering, also everything you're not delivering, any things you will not do, such as I will not trim off 50 pounds on every single picture from your wedding because you're not paying me for that. So a contract will state everything that you are agreeing to and what they're agreeing to, and they sign it. The reason why you sign a contract is because you're saying, yes, I've read all the statements. I've read all these paragraphs. It might be 10 pages. If you sign it, that means you understood it. And if you don't understood it, it comes back onto the client, and it's their fault that they didn't understand the term. Or it could be your fault that it could also come back on you. So you need to write a good, solid contract. You can pay it just a tiny little bit of money and get a great starting point contract online. There's plenty of websites that do this. And that's a really good starting point to have. And also contracts can help you collect information from your clients to create a database of who you shot, when, how much they paid, what's their home address, what's their phone number, what's their first and last name, what's their spouse's first and last name, all those little details you want to start building into a little Excel sheet somewhere. And contracts can help you gather that information pretty quickly. All right, so that's it for the business side of things for now. The third point is you need to see the big picture of things and take your time. If you're a true newbie and you really don't know much at all about editing, cameras, lenses, all these fancy lights and stuff that people are always talking about and throwing money at, you need to just realize, hey, I'm a baby. I'm a little tiny baby in a big, scary photography world. There's lots of stuff to learn out there, and I can learn all of it, but it's going to take some time, and I'm not going to learn it overnight. I'm not even going to learn it all this year. And like I said earlier, I've been doing this for 14 years, and I'm still learning. Jim Landers, my business coach, has been doing it for over 30 years, and he repeatedly tells me, I'm still learning stuff. Things I thought I knew were right, I'm learning just now that they're wrong. And that's good to hear from someone who's at that level of success and activity, is that he's still learning stuff. So this is a big learning journey, and you'll never finish it. Don't let that scare you. Sounds negative, but it's not. So you got to start out with what I call the need for knowledge. This is where you realize how much you don't know. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know, but at least you can know you don't know it. Does that make sense? I don't know. Maybe that's contradictory, but it's fun to say.
That's fun.
You need to know that you don't know everything, and that gap in your head can be filled as you study and as you research more, and also as you practice. That's a big part of being a photographer, is taking photographs. I know. Wow. Mind blown. We'll get to that later, of being an active shooter, because that's really how you're going to get hands-on experience, obviously.
I honestly believe the best way to get better at your craft is to get a mentor, somebody that's further down the road than you. And there's no shame in that. I mean, you can kind of feel like, I know all I need to know and I have access to the internet, but that's like your biggest mistake. I mean, yes, you're right. You do have access, but hands-on experience from somebody else and being under their umbrella helps you tremendously. Yeah. I mean, it could be the simplest thing of moving a light stand, holding a light, moving the shade over here, the reflector. I mean, it could be simple, dull things, but you're actually seeing firsthand behind the scenes stuff of that makes sense. I was always wondering how they got a shot like that, or a clip like that, or whatever, industry you're in.
You remember Daniel-san in Karate Kid? Where
Yeah.
Mr. Miyagi was having him do like minuscule tasks and cleaning and simple movements and little just chores and stuff. And he's like, what are we doing? Like, I need to learn karate. And he was learning stuff all along the journey of those, what seemed to be
Yeah.
small, unimportant things. He was learning basic principles and movements and things that he needed to know later for the big stuff. That's how it works when you're assisting someone in a photo shoot. You're moving things around, but you're going to see the results of moving that light 10 degrees down or turning that light one stop darker, or giving him a different lens. It's like planting seeds. Later you're going to see the fruit of what all of those things really meant as a photographer, because you're going to be doing the exact same things on your own. And really just observing, even if you're not touching any gear, if you're just sitting in a studio watching a photographer do a photo shoot, if you can stay focused and really pay attention to what's happening, you will be absorbing quality techniques, hopefully, assuming your photographer's good that you're watching. You can be absorbing really, really high value information just from being at a photo shoot and listening to how the photographer interacts with the client. How does he not interact with the client? How does he encourage them? How does he pose them? Things like that. That's stuff you want to know. And the best way to learn it is by assisting at a photo shoot, having a mentor. And another thing that a mentor is really someone who wants to help you, who has at least a little bit of time to answer your questions and to encourage you and keep you on track, and also tell you when your photos suck that you don't want to hear. You need to get constructive criticism, or CC as they call it online. And a mentor is a great private way to get that honest and cut right to the heart, constructive criticism on your photos. And they're going to tell you, hey, like, you were way off with the white balance. That's why everyone looks blue. Maybe you didn't notice, maybe you didn't even realize they look blue because you took the photo and you're so proud of it, but you got to have someone tell you were shooting in the wrong white balance mode, or you need to put the sun behind them and not in their eyes. Little things like that.
Yeah.
That you don't want to hear. Sometimes it might really tick you off, but that's what's going to make your photos better and take them to the next level. So that's where a mentor comes in.
Honestly, the more you do something, the more it's like muscle memory. You can recall that moment, in the time that you need it. You're in a wedding, you're at a high performance gig, and you're like, crap, oh no, what do I do? And all of a sudden you flash back to that time. You're like, oh, I know exactly what to do. Or I remember how so-and-so.
Wax off.
Pretty much. Like, I remember how so-and-so presented themselves when a situation like this happened. So, hi, I'm just going to mimic my mentor. Hi, I'm Nate, and I have a solution,
In a normal situation, when you're working for someone like this, when you're assisting at a photo shoot, you might expect to be paid. But honestly, I would suggest doing this for free and telling the photographer, hey, I am a new photographer. I want to learn. I will not be bugging you. I will not be asking you questions. I will not be taking pictures on my own. I will not be distracting the client. I just want to help for the purpose of learning. And, I don't expect to be paid, because really my pay is the experience and is the knowledge and the learning that's going to happen at the shoot. So let me know whatever I can do. If you want me to carry your bag from here to there, I'll do that. It's not very exciting. Sometimes you might be at a really exciting shoot. The photographer may have you shooting lasers at the person through fog. They may have you throwing smoke bombs. They might have you petting cute dogs and keeping them happy in between pictures, but it might also be really boring.
Or whipping that really long cape.
Yeah, throwing the cape up in the air. But it also might be really boring. But you just got to look at the big picture and realize, hey, I'm learning something right now. What is it that I'm learning? I'm going to figure that out. All right.
Yeah.
So next thing in this big picture scope of realizing that you're learning and realizing where you are is doing photo shoots for free. Now, if you asked how to get started as a photographer and ask other photographers, should I shoot for free? A lot of them will tell you no. A lot of them will tell you, that you don't ever want to work for free. And I agree with that principle. But honestly, if you are truly fresh, your images may not be worth money yet. So I would suggest not asking for money for your pictures yet, because they're probably not there. They're not to that point where they deserve to be valued with money. And you don't want to have money on the line when you're not dependable as far as your quality, because you may not even know your style. What if the light is really low and you don't have lights to make up for that, and you're at a wedding? Oh no, you're in trouble. You can't get good photos without lights. So until you're to a certain point of dependability, experience, and reliability with your editing, your style, and your gear, you really shouldn't have money on the table yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. But one great way to learn quickly, to get hands-on experience with your equipment and actually shooting people, and also to build a portfolio, is shooting people without charging them money. It's called TFP online. You see TFP all over the place on Facebook groups. Anyone want to do a TFP photo shoot, or I'm looking for a TFP photographer. That means there's a bunch of different meanings of this abbreviation, but some of the translations of the TFP is time for photos, trade for portraits, trade for photo shoot, trade for photos, time for a portrait. You mix and match the letters. They pretty much mean the same thing. I think back in the day, it used to mean time for prints. Like I would not charge a model and they would not charge me, but I would get, a portfolio pictures of this model that I want, and they would get prints to use at their tryout or whatever, their physical portfolio, because back then they didn't have Facebook portfolios. So it was a trade, and it is a two-way street. You're giving them great photos that they'll love, and they'll look good with your photos, but then also you look good because you have a model or someone pretty or something interesting or a family. How are you going to get families coming to you saying, I want to hire you, unless they can see a family that you've already photographed? It's just not really, it's not really realistic expecting that to happen. So you've got to have a decent portfolio, not just with one person in your photo. You can't just have your portfolio full of one model or one family or your kids. I'm sorry. Your kids are cute, but the entirety of your portfolio cannot be photos of your kids. You got to get variety and try new things. So TFP photo shoots with models is really helpful because you're going to learn how to pose people. You're going to learn how to interact with people. You're going to learn how to use a location like a park or a building, whatever public space you're in, as long as it's safe and legal. You're going to learn how to use that. And also learning how to use natural light, different times of day. How do my photos look different if they're taken at noon versus at 7 p.m.? Knowing those kinds of things are crucial. And really the best way to learn it is by getting out there and experimenting, trial and error, and learning, the hard way, but you're going to have a lot of fun. And also, like I said, you're building some portfolio. If the photos are good, include them in some kind of portfolio, whether it's a Facebook page, whether it's a Flickr gallery or some other resource you're using online to show off, hey, look at me, what I can do. Don't you want to hire me? That's basically what a portfolio is. And more on that later. But also do TFP with friends that that are photogenic or that want to be photographed, that have an interesting style or look. Those unique people and those unique styles are going to get you more noticed online. And families, whatever you want to make money off of, shoot them, because that's what you want to have in your portfolio, and that's what you want to understand how to shoot. If you've never worked with kids below the age of 10, you definitely need to do some family photo shoots, because let me tell you,
heaven help you.
It's something else sometimes, especially with toddlers. So get out there and do what you want to do, but you got to start somewhere. So I always suggest shooting for free for anywhere from 6 months to a year. It really just depends on how fast you're learning and how good you're getting. You may need more time. You may need to shoot for another 6 months or a year to get to a point where you're ready to start charging. Another source of things that you can photograph to get hands-on experience and, like I said, build a portfolio is local photography events. I am a huge fan of local Facebook photography groups. They are so crucial and have been so crucial to my growth. I've also benefited from nationwide Facebook groups that are very, very large. I'm talking 50,000 and up members on there at any time. But local ones are great because you can find oftentimes photography meetups where they have 5 models, of some theme, or maybe there's cars present with models, or maybe we're doing a 1950s or a zombies photo shoot. Find these things that are happening in your city, go there, make friends with the photographers. Don't look at them as competition or enemies or, the guys that are trying to steal your client. Be the best friends with them because they're going to help you and you can help them. That's probably even another whole episode right there.
Well, like the meetups that we're talking about, dude. I mean, you could pay a little bit, or you can go for free. And I've had some of my best images come out of those workshops. And if you think, man, there's so many other photographers, like what you were saying, I understand it can be crowded. So that doesn't mean you have to attend the one that has 25 people. You can show up the one that has like 10 people or 5 people, and most likely they've already provided the location and the models. And so you show up and you pay, I don't know, $100 or plus, or it's free, and bam, there you go. You have more portfolio. take advantage of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, here in San Antonio, there's actually I think there's a Facebook group for meetups. So whenever some photographer says, "Hey, I got this idea. Let's all meet up at this time in this place, and let's have some fun photographing people," they're totally free. There are ones that cost money. I've myself have paid $30. I did a martial arts and ninja themed studio photo shoot. It was so much fun. I definitely got my money's worth paying for that little entry fee.
Yeah.
But most of them are free, and that is a really great resource that maybe you had no clue existed. But wow, what a way to learn and get some pictures, under your belt. And the last place to find ways to photograph things without money being on the table is city events. Find your city calendars, your event calendars, whether it's a charity or if it's an art event or it's something celebrating culture. Those are some really great places to shoot. Now, this may not be a portrait photo shoot, but that's okay. You need to shoot live events. You need to shoot huge groups of people, people that are not looking and smiling at your camera. Capture the moment, capture the history that's happening in front of you with your lens. That is a really good technique. That's a really good trade to know and have, like I said, under your belt as a photographer, is capturing events, because there's money to be made there. You may just be interested in events. Who knows? So find your city events, attend them, have fun, and bring your camera and do some learning there.
I mean, you like your family, hopefully. And you can show up at like birthday parties, Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving, New Year's. And that right there is free practice. And, your family might get great photos out of it. You can send it to them. And, all of a sudden, I mean, it's a great bonding. I know I've done that kind of stuff. Like when I get new gear or I'm uncomfortable doing something, I take my camera to family events and I just film stuff. And people are like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, just practicing,
tell them
capturing the
that you're
moment.
practicing. You're not a professional. You're not expected to make world-class photos yet, but you're learning, and they'll appreciate that.
And it kills two birds, one stone. You get content, and you might have family memory of that, because nobody pulled out their cell phones.
I'm going to add another bird to your killing spree of birds with your one stone. You can kill 3 birds with one stone. The third bird that you've killed with your one stone is networking. As you photograph, people for free, events for free, family stuff for free, you're making connections along the way. And do your best to be a professional person, relate and be nice, and just give them a great experience working with you. Even though they know you're not professional yet, the photos may be awful. It doesn't matter. What they're going to remember years down the road is that you were their first photographer, or you were there at that birthday party. And here you are now, 10 years later, a great photographer. That's a connection you want. And networking is huge.
Social media is huge. And like Daniel was saying, it may not be the greatest photo of your family, but they may have the guts to post it online. And you've allowed like this door to open where your family goes, "Hey, look what my grandson posted," or my niece, nephew, or whatever took of me, and I'm going to post it. And then all of a sudden, bam, their friends and family see it too. And they're like, "Oh, great moment. Wow." And then how do I get that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And there you go. You start networking just because your family posted or showed somebody at the right time. Like, "Oh, like, hey, look at my phone. Here's this." And they basically walking billboards and business cards for you.
Yeah, that's what'll happen when you give people good experiences and you're networking along the way. That the stuff will start. The snowball effect will begin. All right, so that's kind of a general overview of how to get started and sort of some attitudes and perspectives to have on things. So let's get down to the nitty gritty of what I call Daniel's method. The official term.
We need like some real fancy music. Be like Daniel's method.
Yeah, we need that theme song. Yeah, a little jingle. All right, so here's this is mostly from what I've learned, the way that I did things. Every photographer has their own story, and I love hearing different stories because they're so interesting and how they're all different. And oftentimes we end up at similar points later in our life, but we all started differently. So here's what I learned from my beginning story. Is my first thing of Daniel's method is 1, buy a Canon Rebel. They're very cheap, they're easy to use, and they're super lightweight. Next is buy an 18 to 55 millimeter kit lens. That's a very basic. It's not a high quality lens. It's a very inexpensive lens, maybe $100, $200 at that. So 18 to 55 kit lens. And then also here's the awesome one, a 50 millimeter 1.8. All the camera manufacturers make a 50 millimeter 1.8 lens. They're usually around $120 or cheaper, and you get some phenomenal results. And they're a great lens to learn portraiture, macros, and other things on this lens. Crucial to get that 50 millimeter when you first begin, in my opinion. I wish I did when I first started. It took me a few years to even learn about it until I found it. So that's the camera. The lens is right there. Next, the third thing that I always suggest buying is a Yongnuo. That's YONGNUO. It's a Japanese brand. Get a Yongnuo 560 IV, or 4 in Roman numerals. This is a speed light or a flash that can attach on top of your camera. And later, when you get a little bit more money, and by a little bit, I mean $45 more money, you can buy a wireless controller that can control this speed light from 300 feet away. And that's awesome. But first, just get the flash, put it on top of your camera, and learn what's called bounce flash. Bounce flash is going to be your best friend for lighting if you're inside and there's a white ceiling. More on that later. So we got a camera, Canon Rebel, super cheap, easy to use, very popular. We got 2 basic lenses, and you've got a very basic and easy to use speed light to go on top of your camera. All right, so the next thing is software. This is often a topic that confuses and intimidates a lot of new photographers, but don't worry.
It's scary.
Yeah, it can be so scary, but it's not scary because Adobe has made it so easy, and their programs are phenomenal, and almost everyone uses their products, so they're really well supported. And so here's what you do. Do you have $10 a month to spend? Do you go to Starbucks? Well, stop that. Now you have $10 a month. Yay. All right.
Whoa.
So Adobe Creative Cloud is what you need. It's $10 a month. You get Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Lightroom. These 2 programs are just
awesome.
Wow. Like they could do pretty much, I'm going to say it. They can do everything. Lightroom is for photographic editing, pretty much all you need for normal photographic edits. And then Adobe Photoshop, which is much more, advanced and more capable. You can do more in-depth edits there, like retouching, special effects, text, design, all the other stuff that Lightroom can't do, you can do in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And having these 2 programs together is just, wow, you're ready to learn, and you've got all the tools in front of you that you need.
It's definitely a 1-2 punch with this right here. $10 a month. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And the reason why it's a subscription service is because Adobe is always upgrading these softwares. There's a new at least a new major version every year or 2. And in between, there's all kinds of new patches and fixes and upgrades and little additions. You get those all for free if you're paying $10 a month. So it's kind of a rolling benefit kind of thing. Yeah, you're paying $120 a year if you do monthly. But hey, next year when there's a new fancy upgrade with stuff you want, you'll get that. All right. So like I said earlier, shoot for free for 6 months or more. First, you're going to get experience. Second, you're going to get a really quick portfolio. If you are charging money, you will not be getting a portfolio very quickly. You'll be hoping people will pay you, and they won't know what you're paying you for because you have no portfolio to show. It's a very vicious cycle. So you're going to get a quick portfolio. It also means you're going to be learning at a quicker pace because you're doing more photo shoots. And you've got to be upfront. Like I said earlier, you've got to be upfront and honest about their expectations that, hey, I'm not a professional. I don't know, honestly, really what I'm doing yet. You may not want to say that, but something to the effect of, I don't know what I'm doing. So let's see what happens. Who knows? These might be really great photos. And honestly, they're probably the best photos this person has ever had if they've never had a professional. Yeah. So put it all on the table, explain this so they're not expecting the world. And my last point for this one is only deliver and only post the best of the best photos. So what I mean by this is, let's say I take 200 photos in a photo shoot. That's a lot of photos. Do not give them the 200 photos. Don't do it. They may be asking, can I see the unedited photos? Can I have the unedited photos? Professionally and nicely, find a way to tell them, no, I'm sorry. I don't deliver unedited and unfinished piece of work. I'm still a learning photographer, and so I'm only going to be able to deliver the finished photos that I've edited and touched. So let's say you got 200 photos in a photo shoot. You're probably going to pick out, I suggest picking out the 20 to 30 best photos from that group. It may be less depending on what was happening at the event or the shoot, but 20 is a good starting point. Edit only those 20 or only those best of the best photos and deliver those. And then only post maybe 5 of those online, if that, maybe just one. The best of the best, one photo from that whole shoot, post that one online and brag about that. Use it to promote yourself. Maybe 5 if there's some other good shots, but you don't want to be posting 20 photos or 50 photos from some little photo shoot you did. Don't do that because it's watering it down. You want quality, not quantity. So that means you want 1 or 5 great photos, not 50 okay photos.
If you have a whole bunch, this is one thing I learned a long time ago, and everybody has their own taste to what I'm about to say. And I'm not saying, like Daniel said at the beginning, it's just an opinion. Mm-hmm. If you have 5 of the good solid photos and you only want to post 2, save the other photos for that. Maybe you took a fall photo and you have 5 of the awesome ones and you want to post 2, and save them for next fall. Save them for portfolio. Save them for your website. Mm-hmm. People will be like, oh, that's another angle. I haven't seen that. That's awesome. And it makes you look busy.
Yeah, it does.
Honestly, I've taken photos and video clips that I've posted in, let's say, like right now, October, did not post all of it and then posted the rest, next August.
Totally.
And I've done that kind of stuff and got business off
That
of
is great strategy for social media presence right there. I do the same thing. People say, you're so busy. You do so many photo shoots. I'm like, yeah, I haven't done anything all month, actually. But I did repost some photos I did 2 years ago that are still good. And It looks like I'm busy, and people trust me for that. So, and that builds up a reputation, at least in their mind, that I'm a busy and reliable photographer. And that's good.
I mean, we're talking about social media, find free education. It's free. You have Google, you have YouTube, and it's there. And honestly, I think Daniel and I can both vouch for this is we use YouTube or, I'm like, hey, Daniel, how do you do this? He's like, let me YouTube it real quick. I'm like, well, crap, I could have done that too. But so, use what's at your fingertips for free, because honestly, starting off, there was a lot of things I'm like, man, I didn't go to school for this. I didn't know how to do this. This is like the only stuff I know how to do is from hands-on experience. And so I would, go find free outlets to learn more. And it might be stuff I already know, but it was good hearing it again because I had, gone down the road so much further. I'm like, oh yeah, that one step up, totally forgot about that. Another avenue that could be free, and most should be free, is podcast. And I know that Daniel and I use a certain Pocket Cast that was not free, but we have access to unlimited podcasts. It could be fun and creative, but there's also an education part that Daniel and I both use.
Yeah, 2 podcasts that I love that I've learned a lot from in terms of photography is Pay to Pixel, and then also Master Photography Podcast. Those 2 are really great. Pay to Pixel is more newsy. Like he just kind of brings up like 5 to 6 or 7 like news items that have to do with photography. Sometimes there's like a news story, but you're still learning. Like these are like things that you need to know about, whether it's new gear or maybe a legal case that happened and someone got sued or someone won a case concerning copyright. Like that's good to know. And very interesting. And the guy's funny too. And the Master Photography Podcast covers a huge range of topics. And there's also sub podcasts that those guys do too. Like one's about landscape, one's about portraiture. There's a bunch, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 other ones. And Photo Taco is also a good podcast with tons of really great, just right there, right in your face information. This is what this means, and here's how to go do it. Those are great. Podcasts are a great resource, and they are free. I don't know of any podcasts that charge money, but some of the apps cost money. Like we use Pocket Casts app, which costs like $4, but that was before Google Podcast app came out, which is free. So if you're on Android, just get the Google Podcast app, and you can find all the podcasts that are ever out there published for free. If you're on Apple, of course, you can use the iTunes app to find podcasts. Awesome way to learn stuff. All right, so you're a newbie photographer, right? Maybe you got your camera gear, you're listening stuff, you don't know what to do next. Here's what I suggest you learning first is manual exposure. That is controlling your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO to get a properly exposed photo. That's what we want. Although in some cases you may want to have an over or an underexposed photo. Well, normally you want it right in the middle. A properly exposed photo is a good photo. So learn manual exposure. They call it the exposure triangle. Look it up. Your mind might be really, really confused and blown at first, but as it soaks in slowly, as you see some examples of what these things actually mean in the real world, then it'll start to click and you will start to get away from auto, which is a good thing to do, and start using a manual. That's your goal. All right, next thing you want to learn is the composition of a good photo. There are things such as rule of thirds and balance, symmetry, perspective, line and motion are also parts of composition that make a photograph interesting and compelling, and they draw your eye from one point to another strategically. If you have bad composition, the viewer doesn't quite know what's most important. They might look at the wrong thing for a long time and then notice, oh, this is what the photographer was really taking a picture of, was this thing over here or this person. But it's badly composed, so the viewer doesn't really enjoy the photo as much as they could, as if you had properly taken the shot and had it balanced, or maybe had the person in the middle of the photo, or maybe they're not in the middle of the photo. So composition is huge. Next thing you want to learn is understanding natural light. I'm going to assume as a new photographer that you're not wanting to jump straight into flashes and strobes and studio lighting just yet, because I do suggest learning natural light first. It's always going to be there, no matter how big and awesome you become. There's always the sun to use, and it's free. Well, at least currently it's free. Disney will start to charge for sunlight eventually. So understand natural light and how it works. Like I said earlier, understanding what it looks like to shoot at noon versus what it looks like to shoot 1 hour before sunset. What is golden hour? What is blue hour? These are really crucial things to wrap your head around and use them as tools in your tool belt to make great photos. Next thing you want to look into and begin to learn and soak up is posing and prompting your clients. This is basically the practice and really the art of telling your clients what to do so they look natural, so they look happy, so they look confident and beautiful, and you can get great portraits of them that match whatever the style and occasion is for those photos. Not knowing how to pose and prompt people will lead to very unnatural, awkward, and boring photos. And it is a complicated thing posing. Every time I do a photo shoot, afterwards I hit myself on the head. I'm like, God, man, I suck at posing. The photos look great, and I pose decently, but I'm still just like, dude, I miss so many great poses. Why didn't I think of this pose? Why didn't I tell them to do this little movement with their head or their hair or their hand? Posing is always something you'll be improving on and learning. There's lots of great resources out there that you can pay money for, and also free resources concerning posing and understanding people's body types and angles and directions, things like that. So yeah, posing you want to start to learn pretty early on, because you will always be posing and telling people what to do for the most part in front of your camera.
Yeah.
Last thing on this little list of basics of good photography is learning off-camera lighting. Eventually, you do want to get the flash or the speed light off of your camera, put it on a light stand in an umbrella or something, and having it controlled wirelessly from your camera. So that means when I press the button on my camera and my shutter opens to take a picture and I hear the click, my flash is remotely controlled through radio waves, and it also fires at the exact same millisecond. I have light from my flash on my subject, which is my person, and the photo looks really cool. Hopefully, that's the goal, is to have really cool looking photos. So off-camera lighting is that when you've got your flash off of your camera. On-camera lighting is, surprise, when the light is on your camera. I highly suggest never using the flash that is built into your camera. That's called the pop-up flash or the camera flash. That's that little thing that pops up right above your lens, and it's got a little light bulb in it and flashes. Don't use that thing. It's weak. It doesn't look pretty. It's the angle of the light is straight on to your subject, which is not always flattering or interesting. Just don't do that thing. Tape it down if you have to. Get some duct tape. Tape that stupid flash down so that your camera stops using it. Learn to shoot in manuals, because when you're in auto, that's when it says, hey, there's not enough light here. I'm going to turn on my flash because you need flashlight. And then boom, the thing pops up and it starts firing. And you don't know any better when you're a newbie. You don't know that thing looks like junk. So tape it down. Stop using auto. And get an on-camera flash, which you can add, like a Yongnuo, Canon, or a Nikon speedlight, because they're awesome.
If you're sitting there scratching your head, just pause, look up his social media, and pretty much those are all flashes that he's using in their Yongnuo.
Yeah, my cosplay stuff especially. I purposely use a lot of flash, off-camera flash, in my cosplay portraits. Sometimes I'm even putting color gels in front of the light, which means it'll colorize that light. So if the background looks purple or they've got red light all over their body, that's from a $60 speed light with the color gel on it, on a $50 light stand. And your photos will increase in value dramatically when you learn to understand. Now, you're not going to be very good right off the bat. You're going to have to do a lot of trial and error. I'm still trying things out and improving my technique. But man, your photos will go to a whole new level when you start to use your flash correctly and off of your camera.
I had someone say, now, how did he get all that blue on the character? Did he do that in Photoshop? I was like, no, he took a rubber band and a gel and went click, and it was blue light. Boom. And they were like, oh.
Yeah, I'm not spending 30 minutes in Photoshop faking a blue color. It's actually really in the photo, and it looks way better than Photoshop. So yeah, I do as much eye candy as I can, like actually in person with my real photo and lighting, and then Photoshop is easier to use later because I don't have to add a bunch of color and stuff. All right, my last tip here for the first stage of Daniel's method is to keep track of all the time you're spending on everything. That sounds really crazy right there, but find a time management app that has some kind of like stopwatch with labels and little categories so you can keep track of how much time you spent chatting with a client to set up a photo shoot. Remember how much time you spent driving there and then driving home. Keep track of how much time you spent photographing, and then how much time you spent editing, uploading, sending, delivering whatever photos you took. And combine it all together, and maybe have a spreadsheet of how much time you spent per client. You might be surprised at how much time you're spending with this whole photography thing. It's a pretty time-intensive job sometimes. You will get quicker as you get better. You'll get much more efficient. You'll get better tools, become a better photographer, and you'll spend less time editing. But you got to know how much time you're putting into this whole thing, because you need to know how much time you're spending in order to charge, because time is money, right? And your time should be pretty important to you, especially if you got a family. You can't just go spending 10 hours on a weekend, having fun, photographing people, and come home with nothing to show. your family's at home and they're important. So at least that's how I see it. That's why I charge. When people complain about me charging, X dollar amount for a photo shoot, I don't feel bad about it anymore because I know that's how much my time's worth. And
Yeah.
if they're not going to pay me $500 for a photo shoot because they can't afford it, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to say, okay, well, let me know, when you have saved, if you want to save up for a photo shoot, if you want to do a payment plan, if you want to book something later in the year, that's great. But what I don't say is, sweet, I've got more time with my family. That's what I don't say out loud, but in my head, I'm like, great, I got a weekend to myself now and spend with my kids. Yeah, so time is money. So you need to know how much time you're spending in order to know how much money you need to pay yourself back for all the time of your life you just spent editing and working and taking photos and stuff like that. All right, so that's the basics of kind of pointing yourself in generally a good direction to get started with your photography. So once you've made enough money to upgrade whatever equipment you have that you feel does need to be upgraded, and after talking with your mentors concerning how you're doing, like how you're progressing with your technique, how your photos are improving in quality, hopefully they are, your posing, your lighting, your coloring, your editing, things like that. Once you've talked with, a few different people that you trust, then you may move on to the step of becoming more of a business photographer, which is I'm going to charge this much money per hour. I'm going to charge this much money per photo, or however you want to stage and frame your business. It's up to you. There's no law or, equation for this stuff. But eventually you will hit that line where you've kind of crossed and you've got a decent portfolio, you've got connections, people realize that you're an up and coming photographer, and you're like, okay, I'm done with the first stage of being a newbie. I'm ready to make a little bit of money and pay myself back for the time that I'm putting into these projects. And that's where that time comes in. Earlier I said to keep track of all your time. That's where you start to work out the nitty gritty numbers and math of how much you're going to charge per hour. And, it's really up to you and hopefully up to other people helping you when you've reached that point, because you don't want to just jump in and say, I'm going to charge $200 for a photo shoot. And then the client gets back their photos and they're not impressed and they want their money back. And you just spent 10 hours and they want their money back. Not a good situation to be in. So it's really hard for me to even say like how long you should shoot for. I don't like putting numbers on these things because everyone is totally different. I have seen people get a DSLR for Christmas and they're taking killer photos by springtime. And I'm just like, this is not fair. You're amazing. You're 17 years old and like you should be charging already. Although honestly, they may be great at the art part, but not at the business. So they're probably not ready really. But my first response is you should be charging money for this because you're incredible. And then there's other people that have had a decent camera for 10 years and they're just still not quite there. Everyone learns at different speeds and everyone has different, passions and pursuits with photography. You might want to be a hobbyist photographer. There's totally nothing wrong with that. Plenty of people that are phenomenal photographers don't charge. They do these things for free on the weekends, on their downtime. Maybe they're retired. Maybe they've got a really great job situation where they can just, spend hours on an evening or weekends doing stuff that they want. That's up to them. That's not my business. But, if you're listening to this so far, you're probably wanting to make money off of photography, which I do suggest you doing. Because if you keep giving people amazing photos for free, they're going to expect that from everybody else. And they're not going to pay the proper amount of money for good photos. They're just going to look for free people like you. You can influence the photography world, or at least the clients of the photography world, in a negative way by spoiling them with too much for free. And that's what they'll come to expect. Because good photos are worth, in my opinion, a lot. And I'm not even talking about a lot of money, but they're worth a lot. They have value. They have importance. They have a place in history. They have a place in people's emotions and family and their memories. So, you should charge a good amount that will sustain you as a person because you're providing a really great service for someone. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that's it for my tips and advice and things from my personal experience. Next, we're going to hear from some local photographers. So sit back, get your pens and notes ready, and let's learn something from these guys.
Hello, my name is Taylor Odhiambo, and I'm a fashion and commercial photographer. I'm also the owner of Nova Goldie Studios in San Antonio, Texas. My advice to new photographers would be to definitely invest in your education. For some, this might mean a college classroom, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. YouTube is another great resource for new photographers as well as photography blogs. Ideal situation would be for you to get a mentorship. If you can find somebody who's willing to teach you that already has a successful business shooting what you want to shoot, that's going to help get you there faster. Another piece of advice I would share is to make sure that you're shooting every day. Even if it's something in your backyard, that's going to help you get a grasp on your equipment, on lighting, and on clarity, which is very important. Another thing that I wish somebody would have shared with me prior to starting a business is that there really is no one formula for success. Something that I tried with my business might not necessarily be a good plan for another photographer who doesn't do what I do. So make sure that you're assessing your audience and your goals and make your plans around those things. One really important piece of advice that I want to share is that uniqueness is key. If you want to make money in photography and you want to be successful, you have to offer things that no other photographer is offering. Usually that's with your style, with the type of shoots that you do. Maybe it's a location. You do have to offer that uniqueness. And that's about all I have for now. Good luck out there.
Hi, this is Brandy with Brandy Morgan Photography, and I'm a portrait photographer in Northwest San Antonio and Helotes. I have a couple tips for any newbies out there that I'd like to share with you today. The first one is when you get started with your photography, start doing so in raw and manual mode. Get to know your camera's triangle and learn how in midday sun or low light settings you can make your ISO, your f-stop, and your apertures all compatible with one another. The second piece of advice I have for any newbies is get started the right way, the legal way, and go ahead and get an LLC. And it's an initial investment that you'll be really grateful you had. So once you get your numbers and dollar for dollar in QuickBooks and you're paying your taxes, you never have anything to worry about with the IRS and in the future. So those are my tips. I wish good luck to all of you, and thanks so much. Have a great day.
Hi, this is Michael Giordano. I specialize in commercial photography in San Antonio, Texas, and other Texas destinations. My advice for anyone interested in getting into photography is to start as a full-time assistant, do it for at least 5+ years, and learn the business. Then make a decision if you want to be a lifer, or add a little bit more, a couple of years of assisting, or switch to being a photographer. It is probably the one and only avenue that doesn't create an ignorant shooter. And I'm not talking about assisting in San Antonio. Get out of San Antonio, or get out of Texas, and assist some full-time shooters, and you won't regret it.
Hey, Daniel. Thanks for having me. My name is Chad Cooley, and my wife, Kate Cooley, and I run Simply Cerie Photography out in Boerne, Texas. So one of the pieces of advice for any new photographer who's getting into the field or starting up their business that I like to give is please factor in your time. So you'll see a lot of photographers marketing these days, mini sessions or low-cost sessions, $99, $150, and that's everything. It includes the digital files, it includes editing and retouching and meeting and communication, all those little things that actually take what stacks up to be hours and hours of worth of your time. And really, at the end of the day, all that is doing is providing a disservice to those clients, or at least that's our opinion. Because what we have found is clients will take those images and either share them on Facebook, and that's the last they'll ever see of them, or that USB drive will actually get put in a drawer, or nobody will ever download the photos online, and the ultimate result is the client is left with no images after they've invested their time into everything, and really the experience turns out to be more of a negative one versus a positive one. The second piece of advice that I give to new photographers is more of a question, and it's really, what kind of experience are you giving your clients? What I mean by that is, at the end of their session, what is their experience? Are they having to do more work to print those photos like I talked about previously? Are they coming back to you next year? Why are they coming back to you? What was their experience during the photo session, before the photo session? Are they just a number, or have you really created a relationship with them? Have you really found out kind of what makes them tick? what their passions are? Are you creating a memory of their life that they will look back on and be taken back to that season of life that they're in now? Or are they going to come in from a bad day from their house and see their portrait on the wall, and instantly their attitude changes to a more positive than and everything else that they had thought about or were going through just before that just vanishes away? I think as photographers, our job is to document and preserve just cherished memories of our clients. And so by doing that, we have taken a stance that our in-person meeting with those clients is a much better interaction than somebody signing up online or communicating via text. It just really doesn't create the personal experience that we strive to provide for our clients. So what that looks like is we have an initial phone call, a screening, to make sure that our studio is a good fit for them and their family. And we kind of walk them through our process, everything from the session fee, what to expect, how much their typical investment is going to be, and really just ask questions to really start building that relationship, to understand kind of what makes them tick, and all those things to really produce at the end of their time with us something physically tangible that they'll be able to, snuggle up on the couch with their kids 10, 15 years from now and flip through the memories and, this is what mommy and daddy looked like, before you were born, or this is what you looked like when you were 1 or 2, or see those pieces of wall art hanging all around their house, and create just an affirmation, a remembrance of that time that they had together and how happy they were, and be able to pass those things down from generation to generation, pass them down to their kids' kids. And so I say all these things, again, to go back to what kind of experience are you giving your clients? Are you actually documenting their memories that they'll cherish forever, or their passions? Have you built that relationship? Or are you simply posing them like the last 5 clients in the same exact way, in the same setting, same background, and just delivering a series of images that may or may not actually be meaningful 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now?
Hi, this is Leon Johnson from Leon Johnson Photography, and the best advice I could give to someone who is starting out with photography and or portraits is to, 1, go out and shoot everything. Shoot everything until you figure out what you really like. You don't have to decide and stay with one thing. I think that after a while, what you really like will kind of out itself. So once you find out what you like, continue to shoot it. Practice, and that is what's going to make you better in the long run and help you distinguish yourself from others. Number 3, I would say, is start a photo project. Find something that you can be passionate about and do that thing. And a photo project is something that could give you motivation over the months and maybe even over the years to complete and to expand your knowledge. Thank you.
Wow, that's some great content. I just want to stop and say thank you so much for sending those audio clips in. Wow, that's some great content right there. Guys, hopefully you've been taking notes, and go back and re-listen to this episode. Mm-hmm. Dissect this episode, because you not only have Dale and I's opinion, but you have these other photographers that have taken their time to give you this content. So honestly, take time, take notes. And I just want to stop and say again, thank you all so much for sending those audio clips on. They were really awesome. Well, guys, that should end the episode. And thank you all so much. See you in the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Visionary Variety Podcast. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so that you won't miss any of the future episodes. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. If you've got any comments or suggestions for a future episode, you can always reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again and have a great week. So, you want to be a photographer, she? Yeah.